That's right. We're doing it live because this is the Power Lunch Live show. I'm Michael Whitehouse, your host, the guy who knows a guy, if you're not familiar with me. And we have as many as 4 guests every week. We seem to have 3 this week. This show is produced by my 2 producers, Serendipity and Random Happenstance. Not people by those names, just those universal forces. And it works out pretty well. Bring together 4 guests somewhat randomly and always have some really interesting conversations in the juxtaposition of people in different disciplines working together. Before we get to meet our guests and while everyone finds the stream running, let me share a little bit about what I've going on that you may be interested in. First is the Abundance Minded Entrepreneur Summit, May 23rd to 24th. That would be this coming Monday and Tuesday as we are live. And you can get your tickets at guywhoknowsaguy.com/AME. And by tickets, I mean it's free to register. So you can do the thing. So we email you the Zoom link so you can get in for $0 by going to guywhoknowsaguy.com/AME. I do run a whole series of summits, roughly one a month, at guywhoknowsaguy.com/summits. You will find the links to all of them. So if you at home are like, I'd like to attend or speak at one of these summits, you can go there. And if you on the screen are like, I would like to attend or speak at one of these summits. In fact, Stefan, I believe you were at our first The Great Experiment Summit, which was the experiment with Event Raptor that proved that it worked. So I decided to run a whole bunch more. So, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to first go around quickly, do quick introductions, a minute or so of who you are, what you do, what makes you awesome, why people should absolutely drop what they're doing for the next 56 minutes to watch you. And then we're going to, each of you is going to lead off a conversation, sometimes sort of free-flowing. Sometimes it's less free-flowing. Never know what's going to happen. It's live. It's the power of live television. But so you're going to introduce your topic for 2-3 minutes or so, give or take. I don't hold the tight timer. And then we're going to open it up for conversation and see where it goes. Stefan, you're going to be first, then Jaci, then Frank. And I never guarantee that everyone's going to get on to their topic, but with 3, we usually do. But we might get into one topic. It's so engaging, and we're suddenly like, holy mackerel, it's the top of the hour. And we're done. And then we'll go around for one final wrap up at the end. And that's pretty much the format. Hopefully you got it, because I'm not going to repeat it. So let's do some introductions. We will start with Dr. Stefan Zavalin. Did I pronounce that right?
You got it perfect. I'm impressed.
That's a pretty cool name, so I'll say it again. Dr. Stefan Zavalin, tell us about yourself.
Sure. So my passion is movement and basically making desk work good for you, dare I say it, because I don't think we're even at a neutral breakthrough. We're at where desk jobs are awful for us and our health as far as physical and mental well-being. And so I started off in the clinic, and then I realized that I needed to go through and change the way that we're just doing everything outside of the clinic. So yes, I might tell you to exercise, but my whole deal is not to tell you to exercise, but how we can actually change what we do at work to make it more kind of healthy for us in general. That's my whole shtick.
Very good. I'm always very conscious of how much time I spend sitting when you're on the screen. Jaci
Finneman, yeah. And I was just thinking the same thing. It's Friday, so I'm sitting on my butt, but I have my stand-up desk, and Stefan's making me feel like I should be using it right now. I am Jaci Finneman, rhymes with cinnamon, but I'm not a spice girl. And I am the founder of No Problem Parenting, where we choose to deal with and overcome the emotional and behavioral challenges in our home. I am all about creating confident leaders that I say our kids crave us to be. So left a 20-year gig as a family counselor to become a parenting coach, and am a self-proclaimed Mrs. Overdo It, and run a workshop called Mrs. Overdo It. How's that working for you? So I got a few different topics, but today that's what I'm going to focus on today is the Mrs. Overdo It. And I have questions for you guys about that too.
Awesome.
Thanks for the opportunity, Michael.
All right. And next up is Frank.
So the young lady is from Canada.
Me?
Yes.
No, close. Minnesota.
There you go. I know I heard a vowel in there. It sounded Canadian. Yeah, it's a gift. Frank King, your TEDx coach, or TEDxcoach.com. I coach people to get TEDx's, plural. Actually, I have a client who just got his 3rd. I just did my 7th. Question comes up, 7 TEDx's, all the same? No, same topic, mental health, mental illness, because I speak on suicide prevention as a workplace health and safety issue. That's the other hat that I wear. And I also steer people. I've got a PDF I'd be happy to share with anybody. The 6 things you can do to kill your chances of landing a TEDx. Everybody tells you what you should do to get a TEDx. I have 6 things you should not do because it will get you thrown in the no pile almost immediately.
There you go. I like that angle. Whenever people are talking about content that they should use to get engagement, I'm like, well, do people in your field make terrible mistakes? And they're like, oh yeah. Well, that's what your email list should be, because people will sign up for that and never unsubscribe because everyone loves a train wreck. So I love that concept of I want to see those. I'm looking for a TEDx talk right now. I just want to see the train wreck things people do. That sounds like fun. So
love
it. So leading us off will be Dr. Stefan talking about being healthy while working a desk job. Tell us about it, Dr. Stefan.
Well, and the fun part is this ties in so well. I know that Frank is going to be finishing us off, but I actually did a TEDx on this as well very recently. So we'll get into that later. But my biggest thing around it all is we sit too much and we think that exercise helps us. And it doesn't. Exercise is good. Exercise does help us. But unfortunately, it doesn't reverse all of the things that happen to us when we sit too long. And inevitably, the question is, what is too long? And research shows if you're over 11 hours, and the average is about 12 or 13 for Americans, that's too long. And that even exercise, though it helps you, it doesn't completely reverse it. So then immediately people go, oh, well, what are you telling me? Am I supposed to be just running around all the time and just getting up and moving? And that also just takes completely away from your workflow. You can't do that because then you can't get your work done. And work is where we get a huge chunk of sitting done. And so the answer is, one, Jaci already has said she has a standing desk. That's a beautiful resource. But a lot of companies buy standing desks and only about 5% of people actually use the standing desk. So you can't just go and spend a bunch of money on something, because we've probably done that, whether it be programs or equipment, for exercise or not, that we never end up using. And that's because we never built up the habit to actually use it. All that equipment helps you support the habit, which is great, but you can't just build a habit out of nowhere. It's not going to give you the habit because you spent $500. So yeah, that's where we always start with your habits. And for me, and what I want to hear from you guys in general is, what are your habits around sitting? So Jaci, you have a standing desk. What is it like for you? How often do you stand up with it? Do you like using it? Do you go, oh, it aches, but I do it because I know I'm supposed to? How does that go?
Typically when I'm writing content or, doing some of the admin kinds of stuff, that's when I'm using it. Occasionally when I'm meeting with the client, but a lot of times I'm like sitting back and being in relaxed mode when I'm working with my one-on-one with my clients. So I don't use it enough. It is hard sometimes to use it if I'm like writing or if I'm searching, because my other screen doesn't fit up on the desk. And so I'm looking back and forth at things, but I also have a bouncy chair that I'm also not sitting on today because my excuse is it's Friday.
It's fair. Well, and I love that you're saying those things, because so much of this we view as, oh, but it's hard. It's more work. The bouncy chair is more work than just letting me stay here and sit. And that's exactly what I kind of realized by the time that I fell into this, is because I spent 20 years of just sitting, all the way through school, grad school, and everything. Luckily, in the clinic, we didn't sit quite as much, but I also didn't get as many steps as I thought I would. Frank, what about you? How much do you just sitting all the time? How do you feel you do?
Well, I'm a stand-up comedian, so, pretty much. No, I sit a great deal. As a TEDx coach, I sit right here and coach TEDx hour after hour after hour. Now, that said, every morning, an hour walk, 30 minutes uphill, 30 minutes downhill with the dogs. Then I hit the gym at some point. I love the elliptical runner. And I'm training for my 3rd all-natural bodybuilding contest this July at age 65.
Wow, that's awesome. That's fantastic. And I think that you could also say because this is something that I hear, and I don't know, Jackie, if you've experienced this yourself, but when people are presenting, it's very rare to see a TEDx with a person sitting down. When I gave mine, one of our speakers, she had a back injury. She pulled a muscle and she could not stand at all. So she had to sit down for hers. Otherwise, she was in too much pain. But most of the time when you're standing, you have more energy for presenting. And that's
Lord, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I do,
as well as meetings. But
when I do voiceover or narrate, I stand because the energy is different.
Energy is different. Yeah, but like you said, that's not the majority of the time, right? You're most of the time is going to be, a lot of us get on these calls, whatever it may be.
Yep.
We're making content, like Jackie said, and it's just mostly just sitting and relaxing. And that's kind of where I go, okay, it's not going to be helpful if I tell people to just stand up and run around all the time. We do really well by doing things before and after work, but during work is so hard. Jackie, I like what you're doing with finding ways that you can make content at the standing desk. So you're already implementing it while doing it, which, if you think about it, if you've been sitting with a client, you had your one-on-one, then you stand up and do some content and then sit down. It's not only that you stood for that time, you've also broken up the sitting. And that's the other big piece, is that we want to break up the prolonged sitting. The ideal is 30 minutes, but I tell people start with an hour. 30 minutes is going to completely wreck everything that you're trying to do in terms of work. You're going to be all over the place and not being able to focus right away. All right, Michael, it's your turn. What's your confession about sitting? You're very active on the camera. I always love that.
Mm-hmm.
How about movement?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do sit a lot, although the kitchen and the bathroom are upstairs because I'm in a basement. It's a walk-in basement, so there's people like, oh, basement, do you have like UV lights? I'm like, no, I have 6 windows. So yeah, my basement has 4 windows and 2 doors which have windows in them. But for anything I want, glass of water, lunch, bathroom, whatever, that's all upstairs. So I probably do, say, a dozen flights of stairs up and down during the course of the workday. But for doing anything, I need to be sitting because most of what I do is on Zoom or it's working at the computer, and both of those require being at the computer. And I have not been able to set up the standing desk. I don't have a standing desk. So if I want to do anything, I need to do it here on my butt. Although I have, as we're talking, I'm thinking, I wonder if I could get like something set up that's just the right height because sometimes I take my laptop outside and there's no reason why I couldn't, if I had the high enough table, I could have like a mini standing laptop desk.
Absolutely. And that can be for just 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be for long. And the fun thing that I like to say is, so I stand up for all my Zoom calls. I wear the proud mantle of only sitting for 2 last year. I don't have a standing desk because everybody thinks, oh, of course he has a standing desk. I don't have a standing desk. And that's part of why I kind of try to preach it's more about habit than it is about buying that specific thing. I'm curious, what constitutes a basement? Because I would think that if it has windows, especially if it has 6, how is that not a first floor?
It's built into a hill.
I gotcha. So technically, since it's underground,
yeah.
That
so the front of the house, ground level, lines up to the first floor, and then it goes. Gotcha. So it works out really nicely because we have exits on 2 levels.
Very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, stairs is a great way. We actually have stairs where we moved in here in LA. So I just talked that we just moved. I just got all the boxes yesterday. And I found out that I walked 20,000 steps yesterday just carrying the boxes up and down those steps. I don't recommend that for every day. I'm sore and I'm tired. But it seamlessly just went in there, where before it was kind of a 1-story place where it just all came in, not nearly as much movement overall.
Yeah, I have a Fitbit. I used to have a Fitbit. I don't use it anymore. But I once gave a 60-minute talk, and I think I did 7,000 steps on a 10-foot wide stage.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical of the whole step thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 10-foot stage, 7,000.
That's a lot of steps.
7,000 steps. You pretty much have to be jogging in place.
Yeah, it might have been 3,000, but it was a lot of steps. But I was effectively, I think my cadence was about half what I would have been doing if I was walking in terms of stepping. because I don't tend to stand. Believe it or not, I don't stand still when I speak standing up.
I believe it. The energy's there. You're an energetic.
I know I'm so sedate when I'm sitting and on camera, but I bring the energy when I'm live.
Frank, to your point, yeah, the step thing, a lot of those counters, Fitbit especially, they can get thrown off really easily, and it's just the change in motion. So I've even had it sometimes where if it just sits on something that vibrates up and down, I'll wake up in the morning having done no movement, and it'll go, "You've walked 30,000 steps." And I go, I that's a lot of sleepwalking, if that is true. I wasn't even wearing the Fitbit, but okay, something happened. So you're absolutely right. Sometimes they're really off, and you have to calibrate them. And then also there's the whole question of how many steps should we be getting? And there's not just a number that's right for every single person. That's the other thing. Everybody goes, get my 10,000 in. For some people, you just need 4,000 or 5,000. Other people that are ultra marathon runners, maybe they need 20,000 in a single day to maintain. So yeah, I agree with you. It's so subjective.
Yeah, I mean, I had a friend in coma was doing 5,000 steps a day, and I just.
Well, it's just staying healthy. That's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good kind of coma.
So, Jackie, tell us about Mrs. Overdo It.
Well, I've been a natural helper, doer, problem solver, fixer all my life. Take after my mom. She kind of ingrained it in me, I think. I don't know. Born that way, just always wanting to help people, loved helping people. And I was always really fascinated by misbehaved kids. I was babysitter of the year starting at 9 years old. I was like, come from a huge family, well over 100 first cousins, moms from 15 kids, a family of 15 kids, and dads from a family of 9. I'm cousin 66 on mom's side, by the way. So my husband gets his kicks off cousin 66, but I'm bump. And so I was just constantly around kids, and I often would babysit when all the adults were at their family parties. I would babysit all these little kids. And so I just loved it. It was natural, and went on to help kids with disabilities. That was my first gig, my first job, working in school districts with kids with disabilities, and then ended up getting a mental health job a job as a mental health practitioner, working in the mental health field, and did that for 20 years. And during that time, about 2004, my mom passed away. And so while I was a natural helper, doer, didn't need her. She and I were very much alike, so I didn't need her. I was very independent. And then she passed away in 2004, and that sucked. That was really hard. It was like, even though I didn't need her, loved her, was so much like her, she left, and all of a sudden I needed her. And I was, I didn't know how to grieve. So what did I do? I got busy. I got even busier than I normally was. And I started helping people that weren't even asking for help. I started doing more and more and more and more and more things, just so that I wasn't aware of it consciously, really, but just so that I wouldn't have to grieve and her loss. And so by 2006 or 7-ish, I can't remember exactly, but I started my family members. I have 4 other siblings, and I started hearing things from them like, stop trying to be like mom. Get off our backs. You don't have to remind us when we're supposed to do things, or the next event that's coming up, or tell us to RSVP to an event, or do whatever. Like, just get off our backs already. And it actually came like a 2x4 across my forehead. It didn't feel very good, because I was so caught up in all my busyness with work, and I was gaining new positions. Taking positions I didn't even want, really, just to stay busy. And then at the job, so I started becoming a leader for my peers. And that same time, 2006-ish, 7-ish, whatever it was, my colleagues were saying, quit micromanaging us, get off our backs. You're constantly in our business, and just, let us do our jobs and all of that. So I was hearing it from family, and I was hearing it from coworkers, colleagues, all that. And that was the second 2x4. And finally I just went, you know what, something's wrong here. Something's got to give. This busyness, I'm starting to resent people. I'm starting to resent the people that I normally crave helping, or get fed by helping. And I was just resenting everything. And so I had a little goldfinch landed on my windowsill one day. And I'd never seen a goldfinch in my yard. I'm in the Midwest. I live in a wooded area, but I'd never seen a goldfinch. And I hear this tap, tap, tap on my window. So I turn around, And I noticed this beautiful little yellow goldfinch, you know, with the black mask. And I kind of looked and I grabbed my BlackBerry phone. So that dates the story. And I turned around and I actually snapped a picture of it. And I was like, whoa, that was really cool. And tears, this is, you know, 3-4 years after mom passed, and tears just start pouring on my eyes. I'm like, I know, Mom, I need to do something. Like, but I don't know what else to do. I was hating my job. I was over my head, and just not feeling like helping anymore and resenting all of it. And so here I'm talking to my mom now, like she's a goldfinch, right? So I take the picture, I turn around, I get back to work. And the next day at our main office, an hour from my home, I brought it up, the goldfinch sighting, up to my one of my colleagues, Pam, and she said, "Oh, Jackie, we got to look that up." I'm like, "Look that up? What do you mean?" She goes, "Oh, there's a spiritual meaning for that goldfinch. The goldfinch is trying to tell you something." And I was like, "What?" Like I'm open-minded. I can be universal. I'm very spiritual, but I was like, the goldfinch wants to tell you something. So we look it up, and the goldfinch was there saying, you know, it's all about family resolution, finding your own voice, paying attention, listening to your own song. You know, like it was all this stuff that was like, what? Are you kidding me? That's exactly what I'm thinking right now. That's exactly what I needed to hear. But I went on to my rest of my day, you know, 300-mile day, going around to visit all our teams and program development and all that kind of stuff, and kind of kicked it to the curb. And then a few weeks later, sitting in my chair again, resenting on my to-do list, not happy with what's going on. And I look out my patio, and on my deck, there's an owl. I was like, that was the coolest thing. I just froze. And I'm like, we've never had an owl. I actually thought it was like an ornament, you know, sitting on my deck. And I grabbed my BlackBerry and I got a picture through the window screen of this owl, you know, and so I go and I look up, you know, what the owl is trying to say, or what the owl has to say to me. And I'm thinking, this is so silly. But now I'm super curious. So I got to look up what the owl has to say. And the owl is all about not being too hard on yourself. And, I got to grab it. I totally spaced my, the owl is pay attention to the subtle signs that typically go below your radar, right? And uncover your hidden potential and abilities. And I'm thinking, I got to leave my job, but I don't know how the heck to do that. I don't know what else I'm going to do. My family won't let me help them. I burned all those bridges. So anyway, I kind of put that one in the bank and thought, well, I'm going to think about that a little bit more. Well, then another couple of weeks later, a little baby fawn shows up in the backyard. I'll wrap the story up real quick. And the fawn, I look up the fawn, and the fawn is all about not being too hard on yourself. That's the fawn. And being more open-hearted and open-minded, you know, to possibilities. And so anyway, I sum this all up. I'm thinking, I got to leave the job. I think this is a sign that I can do something else. I need to do something else with my life and my career. But I wasn't quite sure yet. So I asked my 8-year-old son at the time, and I said, Andrew, I think God's trying to tell me something. I think I'm supposed to switch my job and leave this career and do something different with my life, and fulfill my passion or answer my calling or whatever. But I'm not sure if it's God. And I show him the goldfinch, I show him the owl, and I show him the deer. And he goes, duh, Mom. Of course it's God telling you need to do this. I said, but how do you know? Well, G is for goldfinch, O is for owl, and D is for deer. And that spells God.
Yeah, but L is for Lucifer.
I was like, what? Yeah, I didn't have an animal that started with an L. So, you know, there you go. So anyway, it was just really interesting. It taught me really to just, moral of the story, slow down, pay attention to the signs that are in your path. No, there's other signs. There's more to the story. I had stop signs. I had snakes. I had toilet paper rolls. Change the toilet paper roll at every gas station I'd stop at on a 500-mile day. I'd have to change the damn toilet paper roll. So, you know, I mean, there were other things. There's more to that story. But my curiosity for the rest of you is, you know, starting your career, what made you do it? How'd you do it? Why are you into it? And what are some of the subtle signs that you've paid attention to in your life that have caused you to pause, slow down, and pay attention and answer your calling?
Before we get to that, remember I think it was from Bruce Almighty, where it's something like, God, give me a sign, and like a truck full of traffic signs is like stop signs and yield signs and road closed signs, and he just ignores it and drives right past.
Yep.
But Yeah, yes, if anyone wants to, and I like how you suddenly got out of your chair and stood up to show us all up.
Oh yes, I did that for Stefan. Really, right?
Yeah, you find an excuse to be like, oh, I gotta stand up out of my chair for some reason.
It's been 30 minutes.
Yep, well done, well played.
I can start with it. I'm one of those stories of where I wish I noticed the subtle signs before it really finally hit me, before all my family members and friends were saying you are miserable at your job and it's too much. But mine came as a combination of where the universe, or whatever you believe, was just pushed me out because I got diagnosed legally blind, which is a very long story, but it effectively, due to nerve damage, blind. And then I got COVID at the same time. And it was just this kind of thing of like, go, do your thing. You have to do it. And so I finally got pushed because I had those little ideas mulling around and I was like, but I don't know, I'm not sure. And I think I should have followed those a little bit sooner and understood that being creative is beautiful and fine. And you can have a business around still being creative and educational. I think that would have been the little signs, but then the big signs were like, get out, go.
So. You got to be done. Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. And sometimes it's, it's some tragedy or the rug's got to get just yanked out from under your feet before you actually go, okay, I got to leave what I'm doing. I'm not happy. It's not fulfilling me and make a change. We get kind of comfortable, I think, right? Comfortable in the uncomfortable and and all that. Frank, what about you?
Well, therein lies the tale. I told my first joke in the 4th grade. Kids laughed. Teacher was hysterical. I decided at that moment I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. 12th grade talent show. Nobody had ever done stand-up. I won. I told my mother I was going to be a stand-up comedian, and she said, you're going to college first. I don't care what you do when you get done. You can be a goat herder for all I care, but you're going to be a goat herder with a college degree. So after college, moved to San Diego just by chance. There's a comedy store there, a branch of the one on Sunset, and they had open mic night. However, my first wife didn't marry a comedian. She married an insurance guy. She was not happy about my comedy aspirations. And I was driving south on Highway 163 in San Diego about 4 in the afternoon. It's raining and depressed because depression and suicide run in my family. It's called generational depression and suicide. I live with major depressive disorder and something far more rare called chronic suicidal ideation. Mm-hmm. And the thought crossed my mind, you just kill yourself. Well, where did that come from? So I created a TEDx talk on this very incident called Suicide, the Secret of My Success, Dead Man Talking. And it starts like this. What would you do if you knew for a fact you had absolutely nothing to lose? What audacious thing would you attempt if you knew by not attempting it, you would literally die? That's where I was in January of 1984, because I realized if I didn't do something, make some changes, and start pursuing comedy, which is where I thought I belonged, I was literally going to kill myself. My second thought was, well, wait a minute. I could divorce my wife, quit my job, try comedy. If it works, great. If it doesn't, hell, I can still kill myself.
Right.
And I've met a half a dozen entrepreneurs who had the same basic thought process. I, as most mentally ill people do, I thought it was just me. But no, I've met a half dozen entertainers and entrepreneurs, very same process. Living a life that felt like they were walking around somebody else's skin. They had a dream they were not pursuing, and they realized, look, if I don't pursue this, I'm going to kill myself. And how many things on this planet are more powerful than someone with absolutely nothing to lose? Mm-hmm. So that was the a turning point in my life, and then we got divorced, and I met my lovely wife, now 35 years. I did open mic night, first night on stage. Halfway through my set, I heard another voice in my head say, "You're home."
Oh, that is awesome.
A year later, I won a contest, local, funniest guy in San Diego contest. I said to my girlfriend, now my wife, I'm going on the road to do stand-up professionally. Do you want to come along for the ride? Figuring she'd go, oh, hell no. She goes, yeah. So we quit our jobs, gave up the apartment, put everything in storage we couldn't fit into my tiny little Dodge Colt. And she and I were on the road she came for the ride, doing comedy clubs for 2,629 nights in a row, nonstop, no home.
Wow.
Worked with Ellen and Rosie and Seinfeld and Dennis Miller and Foxworthy and Adam Sandler, Kevin James, Kathleen Madigan, back when they were just comics. So that was the turning point for me. And I really don't feel like I had any choice. In my talk, I say, if I had a neurotypical twin who didn't live with mental illness, and he was going through the same thing, unhappily married, and she was a wonderful woman. We just didn't belong together. Unhappy in a job, insurance, it was a great job, but just not for me. But if he was neurotypical and he had the same basic thought process, I could divorce my wife, quit my job, try comedy. If it works, great. If it doesn't, oh my Lord, I would lose everything. Mm-hmm. So I viewed it as an advantage. I've got another TEDx, the one before the suicide one, called Mental with Benefits, the Evolutionary Advantages of Mental Illness. So my suicidality is something of a superpower, I believe. Because I said to the audience, look, I don't think I'm broken. I think I was made this way. My depression and thoughts of suicide, simply the flip side of my creativity, imagination. I can teach you to write stand-up and perform stand-up. I cannot teach you how to process the incoming information the way my crazy brain does. So,
wow, that is incredible.
And I love that superpower concept. I wrote a blog article in which I compared different alternative neurologies to Dungeons and Dragons classes. And for those of you familiar with even the basics of D&D, you don't consider a wizard disabled because he can't use a sword. A fighter's not disabled because they can't do magic, but you need each one in the party. And the same thing, I can make the introductions like I do because I have ADHD. It's part of that, what I call popcorn brain, as I'm talking to people. And I've managed to train it to pop names. But also, I have my jack of all trades skill. Like, I have a little answer for everything. That's my Power 5 podcast, what it's all about. Because I can't hold a job for more than 18 months. So I've worked all kinds of different places. I've been part of all kinds of different organizations. I've done all these things because I can't stay put. If I was neurotypical, I would have gotten a job for 20 years and I would have a very short resume and be completely unqualified for what I do now. But because of, all I did. And one of the most successful people I know credits autism with his success. His ability to pick up a business plan and understand it in 5 minutes where it would take someone normally an hour is because he can just okay, cool, change this, do this, and we got a deal.
There's a 60 Minutes episode, 2018, 2019, and they talked about how 30 Fortune 500 companies were hiring people on the spectrum for that one unique ability. And these people were moving out of their parents' basements and making good money now for the first time ever. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty. I've got one of my speaker friends speaks on the benefit of a neurodiverse workplace.
Yeah.
Got no social skills, but
yep.
Whatever their one thing that they do remarkably well. And I'm a big believer, by the way, for entrepreneurs, speakers, mm-hmm. is pick a lane. No side hustles, avoid shiny objects, be the thought leader, the expert in that lane. So whatever it is you do, you're no longer a commodity. When people come looking for that thing, they come mm-hmm. looking for you. It's a long game, but and also determine your ideal clients. Who has a pain point you can address? Because if they don't have a pain point, they're not buying what you're selling, whatever it is, a speech, mm-hmm. product, so. Yeah,
but and Frank, to your point, you only need to be good at one thing. You could be terrible at everything else, mm-hmm. as long as you're good at that one thing. Because nobody wants to hire someone who's okay, because there's someone better at the thing you want to get. If you're a mediocre bookkeeper but a mediocre everything else, great, you're not hireable for anything. But if you're an amazing bookkeeper and bad at everything else, well, just hire you to be a bookkeeper. I actually recorded a training about that for. There's a company called Bookboon. They do trainings for corporate, and it's kind of a library of knowledge. And I never thought I'd be training on neurodiversity and that kind of thing, but I did one and it got responses. I'm like, guess I'll do some more. And I said, like, think of, because a lot of bosses would be like, well, yeah, I don't like Bob because Bob can't get along with anyone. Well, is Bob an amazing engineer? Cool. Hire Bob an assistant who talks to people for him. Let him hide in his cave and do amazing engineer things, and then pass information through the assistant. Or, Susie, who's the amazing copywriter, but can't keep a deadline to save her life. Like, can't hit a deadline. Well, get her an assistant or fake the deadlines. Oh, we need that by Tuesday. We need it by Thursday. We need it by Tuesday. Definitely Tuesday at the latest, because she's always 2 days late. Accommodate that so they can be brilliant as they are. Because if you can accommodate them, you'll get the value. And if not, someone else will hire them, probably your competitor, and will get their value.
Yeah, I think it's and up to and including my chronic suicidal ideation. And give you an example of what that sounds like in my head. My car broke down. Suicide is always an option on the menu for me as a solution for a problem large and small. When I say small, when my car broke down 3 years ago, I had several thoughts unbidden. 1, get it fixed. 2, buy a new one. 3, I could just kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of that is, dark though it may be, is because I've already crossed that barrier that I can kill myself at any moment. I'm sitting in the exit row and the window seat on the airplane of life. I can pop the door open at any point. Because I believe suicide is not so much about wanting to kill oneself as it is about ending the pain. So because I know I can end the pain any moment I choose, I can stand a great deal more pain. So ironically, my suicidality keeps me alive.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love this so much, Frank. I'm so grateful for Michael to invite me to this, so I get to meet you, because that is, I'm all about that.
That's the power of the show.
Huh? What's that?
Serendipity and random happenstance.
Oh, I just absolutely love it. And mental health is not I got to rethink that now. I always say mental health is not a life sentence or a death sentence, but I mean, it could be, right? The way that you phrase it, Frank.
It's in my DNA. It runs in my family. People go, is there a cure? No. And here's the upside, guys, of I tell that story every time I speak on purpose, because every time I've spoken on suicide prevention since 2014, there's been at least one person in the audience, sometimes more, who have that condition, chronic suicidal ideation. It's not the DSM-5. Right. So clinicians stare at me when I say it out loud. And I did a show last week in Boise, a safety conference. And I said, there's always one person in the audience, maybe more. And I'm leaving the venue into the foyer, and coming the other way is a woman in tears. And so when we get close, I wait, and she said, I have chronic suicidal ideation. I said, you didn't know it had a name. You just thought you were some kind of freak. And she's nodding. I said, yeah, you thought you were all alone, and now you know you're not alone. I mean, that's the power of starting the conversation on something like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's very therapeutic for me. So and that's why I picked the lane of suicide prevention speaking. The problem with speakers, Michael, is oftentimes they're very talented and can do just about anything. But should they? No. I believe you need to, laser focus whatever it is that you do, and laser focus on your ideal clients. I only market to half a dozen occupations with a high rate of suicide, because when, in terms of a sales call, when somebody from the construction industry finds me and asks me about coming to speak, I don't have to convince them that A, they've got a massive problem, and B, I've got part of the solution. So half the sales process is done. They're just trying to figure out which one of us they're going to hire to come in and speak.
Well, I have to say though, Michael, that I think this is because Frank is not ADHD. So that's why you can do the hyper focus.
Although actually to that,
but those of us like
I can speak on. I'm getting into speaking now. Now that the stages are reopening, and I can speak on many topics. Obviously, networking. I can speak on various motivational topics. I can speak on opportunity and all kinds of things. But I chose, and probably because I often don't remember where my knowledge comes from, so I talk to people and get smarter. But I'm sure Frank has been part of that building process. I've talked to enough experts who have said, if you're going to speak about one thing, don't be known as the everything guy. Nobody wants the everything guy. And so I'm like, well, I could speak on motivation. I could speak on opportunity, but I'm going to speak on networking related things.
Oh,
And
boy.
so if I'm talking opportunity, it's going to be how the ability of everyone to network is going to create opportunity. But stay focused to that. So even I can focus on a particular topic because I realize the power, and that's part of why I have a show like this, because it's 4 or 3, 4, however many random guests that lets us go to any kind of topic anywhere, which is awesome. But if I'm going to be looking for a stage, they're going to say, what are you going to speak about? And I can't say, oh, I could do this or this or this or this, because confused mind doesn't buy. And they'd be like, oh, so what do you do? Whatever. Get Frank. I know what he talks about.
Well, I tell my
It's
speaker
true.
coaching clients, I have a landing page for the mentalhealthcomedian.com/agriculture/construction. So when the meeting planner lands there, agriculture. She doesn't see, or he doesn't see, that I speak to doctors, dentists, attorneys. They see a speaker who speaks on suicide prevention, agriculture. I tell my students, you need to join the conversation in the client or meeting planner's mind.
Yeah.
And the best it ever was, if you go to my page, woman went to the page on agriculture. And she goes, Frank, I'm reading the first paragraph and it says something like this. Hey, I bet you've been chosen to find just the right suicide prevention speaker for your agricultural event. Boy, no pressure there. She said to herself, how does he know what's going on in my head?
That's awesome.
Love it. Yep. And so I wanted to get back to talk about the superpower of that, because certainly people would hear chronic suicidal ideation and be like, that sounds debilitating and awful. But I'm reminded of the samurai. One of the things they did before going into battle was they thought of themselves as already dead. So I've already died in this battle. There's nothing to lose. I already died. So I have nothing to be afraid of. Yep. I'm already dead.
Well, and I've had situations in my life, we'll spare you the details, where that's come up. I will tell you that March of 2020, this is right at the point that began giving vaccination. Speakers Bureau called me. Frank, we're in a panic. We have a conference in Florida, a state with no mask mandates. And of course, it's pandemic still raging. And we can't find any speakers willing to go to Florida in the middle of a pandemic. And I said, dude, I'm suicidal. What do I care? Book it.
There you go.
Yep. I wore my N95, and when I got there, you could tell the audience was looking at me like, why are you? I said, I'm going to tell you exactly why I'm here. And I told them the story I just told you guys. And
I love it. That's great. And so to get back to the original question, to get back to Jackie's original question of what was the most. So for me, I wrote the Guy Who Knows a Guy, the book, in 2017, but I worked a series of mediocre jobs that almost paid the bills, but it was too much of a leap to try to go into full entrepreneurship because I was barely getting by, but I could drive Lyft or Uber and cover the difference. But if I left the job and focused entirely on whatever the heck I was going to do, because I didn't have a clear vision anyway, then that was way too much of a risk. And I kept getting clues, well, maybe you could speak here, maybe you could do this, maybe you could do that. And of course, those clues are all too subtle. So then God stepped it up a notch and shut down the entire world and sent us all home to the internet. And that was
your fault.
That was enough. Yeah, sorry, it was me. That's what it took to get me. And as far as I can tell, a few 100 million other people out of their ruts. But yeah, then my old business, 75% of my sales came in-person networking. Well, that wasn't going to fly anymore. And then it was a matter of, so I'm not doing that. And having done what I've done, it seems ridiculous to try to find a job during COVID with the lockdown, with everything changing. I might as well just start a business and figure out what that is, because I'm going to do this faster than I'm going to find a job. And it took me about 1.5 years. And now I'm profitably business running. So, but yeah, it took that dramatic change because I didn't have, there was no intense pressure. There was that slow grinding, the frog in the boiling water kind of situation, which apparently is an urban legend. Apparently frogs will jump out of a pot of boiling water.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I guess they do notice it gets hot eventually before they actually boil. But I'm
not trying it, but
the colloquial frog in the boiling water was where I was. So,
you want to horrify the kids, Mom? Watch this.
Yeah, right.
Boy, they'd be scarred for life, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Well,
go
go
ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that it for me, it was really being offended and getting to the point of resentment before I even started. Like, I just thought I'd be at my job for forever. I loved the agency. I loved the work. And even when I didn't love the work, it was like, what else am I going to do? Who am I to leave?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not licensed. I never went the therapy route. I just wanted to help parents in the day in, day out, normal, everyday struggles that parents go through. I didn't want to have to do treatment plans. I didn't want to have diagnoses are great. Fine. It gives us an idea of, what we're dealing with or what the person's dealing with, but they're not life sentences. And so, yeah, it took people to, offend me and hit me over the head with a 2x4 and tell me I sucked and they didn't need my help to actually decide, well, then screw you all. I'm going to go do my own thing and become a parent coach. I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to go do it. And that's what again, the Goldfinch helped in its interesting way. So, so now I do no problem parenting. It's literally in the definition of a problem. Problems are meant to be dealt with and overcome. And so let's just do that. Let's only give problems as much attention as they deserve. And then, as we say in the Midwest, keep her moving.
Well,
so is your website no-problem parenting?
There's no dash in it.
Okay, no problem parenting.com.
No problem. There's a dash in that on purpose, just to say, hey, it's not that there's not a problems aren't a problem. Like,
right.
You just say no problem to everything. In fact, that's my only guarantee. I'm sure, Frank, you know this as well. Everybody says you have to have a guarantee when you're an entrepreneur. And it's like, well, I do have a guarantee. Actually, I guarantee you're going to have problems raising your kids. And that's my best guarantee for you. So,
mine
but no problem parenting. And I have a podcast too, the No Problem Parenting podcast. Love to interview each one of you on that.
I'm going to subscribe to that right now.
Thank you.
And my guarantee with TEDx is this. I tell them, look, it's called Till Death Do Us Part. We work on getting you a TEDx and your speaking career ramped up to where you want it to be until we do, or we both die trying.
Yeah, right.
And one client said to me, Frank, I know you're suicidal. I need a separate deal. That you want to kill yourself before. Yeah. And is it Stefan?
Yep.
I think that he speaks to what I said in that there's personal trainers and so forth and so on. But it seems to me that movement is a particular niche.
It's funny that you say that, because I always say the opposite. I say that exercise is a part of movement, but movement is this huge and big thing that we don't talk about. And that when we say we should move more, what we tend to mean is we should exercise more, and that's not really the case.
No, and you can get a personal trainer to help you exercise more. But if movement is an issue, and I believe you're right. I believe we should move more. And what you didn't mention was my lower back started hurting. Mm-hmm. And like most hypochondriacs, I thought I got prostate cancer, and I just lumbar. It was my lumbar region. Mm-hmm. So I bought a lumbar, and I saw a nurse practitioner. She goes, Frank, do this. And I think this may be part of movement, or maybe it's just a segue between movements. She said, sit with your feet flat on the floor, your arms, elbows bent at roughly a 90-degree angle. And buy the lumbar thing from Amazon to go at your back. So you're sitting up straight with lumbar support. And man, it was like magic. I was like, really? Sitting like that? Yeah. Simple.
Fun little fact also for you, sitting in an upright posture makes you more receptive to positive ideas and thoughts than sitting in a slumped posture. Slumped posture shows more paying attention to negative thoughts.
Oh.
It's kind of why I'm slouching right now, because I don't want to have any more great ideas or thoughts. It's Friday. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
But one quick thing I want to share, and then I want to have Frank talk a little bit about TEDx is my mother wrote a short story. Actually, she's coming to visit. I need to ask if she still has it. But it was called The Bridge Will Always Be There. And the theme of it was this woman, everything fell apart. Her husband left her and whatever. And she walks across this bridge and considers, she's like, I could just end it all and jump off this bridge. And it occurs to her, If I come back tomorrow, the bridge will still be here.
Yes.
Why don't I give it a day, see what happens, and if it doesn't work out, bridge. And that was, and I don't think I had the suicidal ideation necessarily, but there have been times I've been like, things are kind of rough. But what if I gave another day? Think it'll get better? And invariably, it tends to get better a day later.
And to your point, Michael, I've got a friend who's a mortician.
Mm-hmm.
And people come in, they're grieving. And oftentimes, if it's, they're perhaps depressed and suicidal because of the loss of a loved one, could actually be a beloved pet. And the mortician said to me, I always take suicide off the table. And I said, no. Leave it on the table. Just move it to one side like that bridge. It's always there. It's a coping mechanism. It's always a way out. So if you have a way out, you're more likely to go on.
Yeah, it's funny. That works in email marketing too. If you have a big unsubscribe button, if you're like, hey, if you don't want to get this anymore, here's the unsubscribe button. Leave anytime you want. Unsubscribe rates drop. If they have to go find it, because they need that escape. If you give them, here's the door. I've used it in car sales as well. If you got the door, you don't need to walk through it to prove you can walk through it.
Well, if I was going to unsubscribe from your emails, Michael, it would take me a solid day hitting the button. That's right.
There is one button that unsubscribes everything.
No, I wouldn't do that too. But I wake up and I bet I got an email from Michael today.
Well, that's because it's a daily podcast. Yes.
I know. I'm kidding.
You're supposed to. And if you want to get a daily podcast, go to morningmotivation.fun. And then you can get my daily motivation podcast. Like I had that quick release there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Frank, talk to us about TED Talks.
Okay, we got about 6 minutes at the top of the hour. There's 6 things you can do to kill your chances of landing a TEDx talk. And I'll be happy to send you the PDF if you'd like to share with your listeners, viewers, whatever, Michael.
Okay.
Mistake number 1 is the big thing most curation teams, selection committees say about TEDx applications. The thing that gets them thrown in the no pile almost immediately, too much. They want one idea worth spreading, not 2, not 3. And so if you put several ideas on the application, now you can submit a number of applications, 1 idea per, but you submit 3 ideas on an application, chances are it's going to go in the no pile. Mistake number 2 is a cousin to mistake number 1. You've chosen an idea worth spreading, and I work very hard with my clients to figure out what that is. Then you put too much about that idea. They want 3 sentences, not a thesis. That's why I have my clients, first thing I ask them to do is give me a title, subtitle, and then write me a 10 to 15 word elevator pitch, no more. And then give me no more than 3 sentences. Because TEDx committee figures if you can sum it up in 3 sentences, you can do it in 18 minutes. Mistake number 3 is a lack of creativity. I've got a friend who went to one of the other big TEDx coaching companies before I met her, and they do a good job. I's dotted, T's crossed, but she applied 80 times for a TEDx, different places all over the country. 80. No auditions, no callbacks. And she called me crying. She goes, Frank, I said, you got a great topic. You got a great idea. You got a book on the subject. It's a bestseller on Amazon, a difficult, category. Do you mind if I take a look at what you're submitting and then, work a little of my magic? Well, it was I's dotted, T's crossed, but not sticky. It didn't really, it didn't make me curious or intrigue me in any way. So I put my little magic on it, sprinkled it with pixie dust. And within 5 applications, you got TEDx Beacon Street in Boston. So that told me the first hurdle is you need to get over is to get the audition is be creative. Now, I'll give you a classic example. Suicide, the secret of my success is counterintuitive. Wouldn't that make you curious about what the guy's got to say?
Mm-hmm.
They called me and said, you don't have to audition. Title, subtitle, good enough, you're on. The next one, mental health and the orgasm. Treat your depression single-handedly. Again, no audition. And a standing ovation, by the way. Yeah, and the closing line, which got the standing ovation, was, do you guys know why they call it orgasm an orgasm? And they're looking at me like, no. And I went, because nobody can spell. So you need, I don't care who you hire, but if you're hiring a coach, he or she or non-binary must be correct, because that's, I believe, the first hurdle. If I got 200 applications to look at as a selection team member, yeah, you better get my attention because I want to go through those things as fast as I possibly can. Mistake number 4, hiring the wrong TEDx coach. I've got a friend who hired a college. It was getting college speaking gigs, and he hired this guy. And so it's a mutual friend of ours. And my mutual friend spoke to the young man, said, I want to set up a lunch with this guy. I want to know what he's going to do for $900 a month or whatever it was. And he pushed him and he pressed him and he pushed him. And he finally got him to admit that he's only done 2 college speaking gigs. So hire somebody who's, perhaps done a TEDx or 2 and is creative in that way. Mistake number, what was this? Was that 4? Mistake number 5 is, it needs to be something you're passionate about. That's a big deal with the TEDx committees. It's, suicide prevention, mental health is my purpose and my passion. I didn't pluck it out of the air. Somebody said, how'd you decide to talk about suicide? How'd you pick that topic? It picked me. So it needs to be something that makes the hair on your arm stand up. It's that story you can't help but share. Judy Carter has a great book called The Message of You, turning your life into a money-making speaking career. And she walks you through that process of finding that heart story, the one you cannot help but tell. And number 6 is simple. You applied a couple of times and gave up. It's a numbers game. I've had clients get it in the first half dozen applications. I've had clients get it after 40 applications. You just have to keep applying over and over and over and over until somebody goes, this is great. So those are 6 things you can do to kill your chances of getting a TEDx talk.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, that was pretty fantastic. Very, very informative. So I appreciate that. Thank you. So we are coming up to the top of the hour. So we're going to do a quick round of parting thoughts. And if you have anything, links or things you want to share, feel free to do that. And then stick around for a second after I hit the end button. So we will kick it off. I guess, Frank. Yeah, Frank, go ahead. Give us your closing thoughts.
Yeah, good news about mental illness, suicide, depression. 8 out of 10 people who are suicidal are ambivalent. They cannot make up their mind. 9 out of 10 give hints in the week leading up to an attempt, which means the majority of people can be saved, want to be saved. Mm-hmm. And you can save them by doing something as simple as we're doing right here, and that is starting a conversation.
I love it. And then yourtedxcoach.com is the place to find you?
That would be me.
All right. And Stefan.
Well, first, I don't know if it's going to be too much to ask Frank to do it, but I would love to hear him completely tear apart my TEDx talk and tell me all the things that I did wrong on it. That one, it's called Move More, Sit Less. Luckily, Stefan Zavalin is a really unique name, so you just YouTube that and you find me. But stefanzavalin.com also happens to be the website. And on the subject of move more versus sit less, my biggest parting thing is sometimes we think it's about doing more of this stuff, of the good stuff. Sometimes you need to take away and do less of the bad stuff that's really hitting you. That can be in movement, that can be in life, all the way throughout.
Agreed.
Yes, definitely. And Jaci.
So no problem parenting in 3 steps. Seek first to understand why my child's behaving the way they are and why am I responding or reacting the way I am as a parent. Step 2, prepare for the worst. Can't always be prepared, but hey, there's plenty of behaviors that happen every day that we can be prepared for so that we respond versus react. And step 3 is to change the conversation. Or we're praising our kids way too much, so much so they don't even believe it themselves. They don't believe what we're saying. So we need to be a little bit more conditional than just all this unconditional. So that's that. And I want to remind you that on particularly rough days, when you feel like you cannot possibly endure, remember that your track record for getting through those days so far is 100%. And that's pretty damn good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As someone said, today sets your personal best for number of days survived. So
yeah,
tomorrow you will also break the record, assuming you get there. So, well, thank you all. This has been awesome. Once again, a reminder that the Abundance Minded Entrepreneur Summit is this Monday and Tuesday. You can go guywhoknowsaguy.com/AME. It is free to attend. Apparently, I'm not supposed to say the word free because it makes you think it's worthless. But you don't think it's worthless because you're too smart to fall for that NLP stuff. You know that if I'm hosting it with awesome people, it must be great because it's like this, but with 20 speakers. It'll be amazing. So definitely show up there. And if you don't want to be free, you could just buy a VIP ticket and then you'll feel better. So you can do that as well. Thank you to all of our guests. And there's a little scroll going along the bottom of the screen there. If you think you should be a guest, go to guywhoknowsaguy.com/power lunch. It is easier to get on than its head stage by quite a bit. And, in fact, 100% success rate with the three of you signed up. So there we go. But this has been great. It's fun as always. And stick around for a second after I turn off the live.